Charles, a very good evening to you. Thank you for being on Nightline. So, as I was saying in the introduction, tensions between African migrant communities or undocumented foreign nationals in the country, especially in the township and poorer areas of the country, are nothing new. When you look at how this issue has been handled from last week, would you say that the government is dealing with it in the best way possible?
Thank you very much, Diepsloot, for having me, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, I would say, South African government, they are trying by all means within their capacity, to contend this migration problem. You must remember that this problem is not only a South African problem, but the whole world has been turning around due to people looking for prospects outside their country of birth. We thought this issue was contained last year, but we see it coming, and I think we need to think beyond what is happening at the moment and to look at the gross domestic happiness of people, especially South Africans within the community, and ask ourselves question, is it the slice of the cake too small for everybody to share? What can the government try to establish so that people can have something to be busy with? You see, criminality regarding the undocumented foreign nationals who are in the country, that is a big crisis, You might be aware that the South African Police Service is, understaffed by over 7,000 policemen, to do the law enforcement, to check and the credentials of people and making sure that everybody is documented, as well as the Home Affairs Department is overwhelmed with so many applications which are coming for people to seek either asylum seeking or other documentation like work permits and student visas. This issue will escalate as time goes on, because I think we, as people, we need to sit down, especially with countries involved with all these so-called classification of foreign nationals, and find out their sources of nationality and what they can do, within the community, so that people can live in harmony.
And South Africa, like many other countries that are dealing with a massive immigration issue, has repeatedly said that it's working with limited resources, right? But how then do we take the limited resources, use them as optimally as possible for the local population that is also facing quite a poor quality because things are stretched so thin, but also then take into account the fact that there are millions of people who come to South Africa for whatever reason, whether for economic pursuit or fleeing war and famine back home?
Yes, Diepsloot, South Africa will never gonna solve the migration problem alone. Each and every citizen who come from outside other nations, not only the African continent, but beyond the waters of Africa, we need countries to come to terms with the South African government to see how well they can resolve this issue, because if people or other nations believe, including the international community, the SADC, the AU, that South Africa will sort out this, it will be a disaster on the fiscus of the national government of South Africa. I mean, we've got embassies in South Africa, and we believe that the ambassadors representing these nationalities who are in the country, they should come to the party, and address these issues on how well they can try to assist, in terms of also documentation of the nationals who are around, and we must also remember that Home Affairs as well, they've kept too much of the backlog of applications, and also, it is only reasonable to some extent to understand that also South Africa is trying to control the influx of migrations in South Africa. But, one will also understand that there's so much of criminalities which are involved in terms of be it foreign nationals or within the South African themselves. The incident in Diepsloot in Johannesburg has been not an isolated one,
And Charles, I want to come in there just on the point about criminality, and forgive me for cutting you off, criminality in Diepsloot. The accusation there from some of the local community is that the undocumented foreign nationals are behind a spike in crime. We're told there have been several murders in the area in the recent past. Not sure how the community has directly linked that to the foreign nationals in the community, but how does that conversation about the involvement of foreign nationals in South Africa in crime go ahead? How does the conversation go ahead without it being branded outright as xenophobic and shut down at that point, as often happens?
Yes, Tabekile, we must not forget that there are people who are xenophobic. There are people who feel because of the circumstances and the situation, the hardships, they feel that other people are taking their place. Of course, other people from other nationality. But criminality as well, it is another incident which, the police and law enforcement officials asked to address drastically. And as well, the biggest challenge which we have in Africa or around the world is the media reporting. How do you tell a foreigner from a non-foreigner? If there's just an incident, when the reporters get on the ground there, they just ask from the passerbys who are in the protest and say what happened, and they say a foreigner shot a policeman. Already that incident goes viral, and I think we must have to get credible information from the ground, either from the investigating officials, the police officers who are investigating these officials, really establish whether that criminal activity was perpetrated by a foreign national or a South African. But, criminality has got no nationality. I mean, we must call criminality criminality, and those who has to be prosecuted must be prosecuted, be it a foreign national or a South African. But, we need to, I think by this time in civilization, we need to see and find a situation amicable where we can live in harmony and enjoy, the fruits of being as an African. And we shouldn't be seeing ourselves as fighting each other. If you look at this incident and many others in these locations and, where there's either poor service delivery and people living below a rand a day, that's where we have these confusions. But if you talk about where you are there in Sandton and, surrounding areas, the Hyde Park, we don't see these type of situations. And I think the government must sit down with the parliamentarians to make policy, especially the foreign policy, where they can address these issues. And I think these are just symptoms of the bigger picture which is going.
All right.
Can't we address the unemployment and the poor economical infrastructures, and can we get people employed and make the people busy, create a system that can condone this? Why should we have one Ministry of Women? Can we have a Minister of Happiness, so that that minister will be addressing these issues for people to be happy in the country?
Charles Sinkala, thank you so much for your time. That was Charles Sinkala, International Relations Consultant, joining us from our Cape Town studios tonight.